How did you get to New York City? What's the story?
Wow, we jumped right into it.
Yeah.
How did I get here? My mom and dad had sex, and then they had me. I'm from here, so I didn't come to New York. I have always been in New York. Yeah.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in the Bronx, where my parents are actually still in the Bronx, in the same house that I grew up in.
What was that like? What was life in growing up in the Bronx like?
You know, the weird thing is that I have to think about it now to know how weird it was growing up in the Bronx. Because when I was growing up in the Bronx, that's all I knew.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, you know your 10-block radius or whatever, and it's just so normal. And I'm realizing the older I get how incredibly weird and unique that way of living and growing up is, you know, and I love it. I'm so grateful that I grew up there. There's so many different directions we can go in with this, but I mean, I grew up around like every different type of culture and food and music and lifestyle. Like I grew up in a pretty low income area of the Bronx. I was one of few white kids. Like I grew up in a very black area, very like West Indian. There were also a lot of like Jewish people. There were some Koreans. So like just a lot of different types of people. So I grew up as an Italian kid. So we had like Italian influence and then like Caribbean influence. I was eating curry goat as a kid, which is like very bizarre for some little fat Italian kid to be eating curry goat. But yeah, it's just like the exposure. So like there were just other like poor people around me. And then you look into Manhattan and it's like half crime ridden and then half these super rich people in suits who like just felt like different creatures to me. So it was just like a mix of everything, you know? And looking back on it, it's bizarre. It's really unique to how like a lot of the rest of the country is. I've had the privilege of like traveling a lot. So I got to see how like a lot of other people live. It's very different than the rest of the country, which you don't realize as a kid. But I'm so grateful because I was exposed to so much. And I think that's why like the things that I like vary so much. And like my work is kind of all over the place just because there's so many things that I like love. And I'm trying to merge them. But at the same time, I want to explore all these different things because I genuinely like them just because I grew up around so many different things, you know?
What did you pick up from these other cultures that you loved that stuck with you?
Oh, interesting question. I don't know, just everything, just life. Like people are just such cartoon characters, especially in places like this, especially like low income places. It's just the best, you know, like because people are so themselves, you know, like nobody's putting on any kind of facade of like professionalism or trying to be nice or pleasing anybody. It's just some people are just so themselves, and I can't even exactly describe what that means, but like, do you know anybody who's just like so themselves that you just love it? Because like it's so authentic that even if somebody's doing something like irresponsible, like they're always late or they're always something, but it's like that's just them and it's so them and you love it, you know? So like just people being loud and like yelling at each other, but there's always this kind of undertone of humor and also like anger and stress, but humor is always mixed into it. Almost always. It feels like there's always some kind of like fucking around. Am I allowed to curse?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. There's always some kind of like, I don't know. There's just seems to always be some kind of humor stitched through everything, which just makes it even better. You know?
Is it mostly immigrants that were around you or they multi-generational families or?
A lot of immigrants. Yeah. Cause even like, I grew up right in between an Italian section and a West Indian, like Caribbean section. And most people just got there or first generation. So a lot of accents, a lot of weird foods, a lot of misunderstandings. But yeah, like the accents, the way people are, the things are just so bizarre. Like seeing a guy open up a can of tuna fish in the morning for breakfast and put it in a frying pan and like fry up a can of tuna fish. You know, like you don't see that in a lot of places. Yeah. But this guy from Trinidad did that, and it's just like, and he mixed in like some onions, and that was his breakfast. So like to see people do that, it's just so funny because like it's nothing that I would do, but it's something that he would do, and to him it was perfectly normal, but to me it's not. So it's just funny seeing that like everybody has their different idea of what's normal, you know? Yeah, it was just such an interesting way of growing up.
How poor was it? Were people really struggling or not particularly?
Pretty low income, yeah. Yeah. Everybody was definitely paycheck to paycheck or working like multiple jobs. A lot of like single moms. I knew some single dads. One of my best friends growing up, he was a single dad. They were from Trinidad. I used to go to his house. He actually, so my friend Larry played the drums because his brother actually, I'm just going to jump right into it, I guess. His brother got shot on his block. Like it was like kind of gang related. So his dad asked the church if he could bring the drum set home because his other son, his younger son, Larry, was really into drums. So he was like, whatever I could do to keep my son like in and off the streets, I'll do. So he had a drum set in his apartment. It was so loud. The neighbors probably hated it, but his dad was just like, I'm going to do whatever I can do so that you're not doing this. So I would go over to his house and he would play drums and I would play guitar. And I would come home and I would just smell like oil fried fish because they were always frying fish in oil. My parents weren't happy that I always came home smelling like that, but that was just like the thing. And you just didn't even notice the smell after a while because you're in there for so long. And again, it goes back to like, that's normal for them and it wasn't normal for my family. But like, I guess you get to see that. So then everything eventually becomes normal, you know, which is really cool because then nothing is like shocking almost, you know, because you see so many different ways of living that you almost expect people to be living in a different way, which is cool because in the rest of the country, you expect everybody to be living the same as you, which that's probably more how it is, I think.
Yeah, that's very well put. What were the best foods you experienced growing up there?
I love Jamaican food. So yeah, like curry goat and oxtail. Like, it's funny because I'll say that to people who aren't used to that. And there's like oxtail, like, maybe it's more popular now. It's probably more popular now, but like, yeah, the idea of eating goat and like oxtail just sounds weird to some people, but it's so good. So good. Yeah.
When do you remember, and you may have just said this, your first, you were saying before we were recording that you've always had sort of an artistic streak. When do you remember that first being expressed? Was it that story with the drums?
No, it was from before that. I feel like it was just always a part of me in some weird way. Like I was always drawing something or trying to make something. My dad was a maintenance man in a hospital on Roosevelt Island, and he would always like kind of bring home like scrap wood, or they would be throwing away some like weird piece of medical equipment and he would just like bring it home instead of throw it away. So we just always had like these weird freaky things around that we would be trying to build stuff out of. I thought I was going to build a submarine because like he brought home some weird plastic tube. I obviously never built the submarine, but in my head I was going to build a submarine just because I saw a plastic tube that could have been like a window of a submarine. So my kid brain just filled in the rest of the submarine. I was like, of course I'm going to build this. I already have the window. Why wouldn't I build a submarine? Like, that's just the way my brain worked. So I was always in this mode of like producing something and like making something. I wanted to like bring something to life, which is just different than like, I meet a lot of people who are more like consumers. You know, I think there's like producers and consumers. And I think, yeah, some people are consumers and they look to get stuff and collect stuff. And I have just always looked to make stuff. Like I'm always on the hunt to make something. And when I'm walking around, I'm always like storing things in my brain. Like even as a kid, I would do this. I would just see a thing or like a color or a pattern. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that someday. You know, like I see this thing. Maybe I won't throw that toilet paper roll away because like that's going to be something tomorrow. You know, I'm going to make something out of it. So I'll just keep it. I never got into hoarding, but I could see myself getting into hoarding. If I really wanted to be a hoarder, easily could be a hoarder. But I'm not. I actually don't like stuff. I try to not have as much stuff around as possible. I hate it.
Was that creativity, that desire to produce, was that encouraged from an early age?
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure some of this is like nurture also.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, we didn't have a lot growing up. So it was always like, every toy I wanted to buy or thing I saw that I would want to buy as a kid, it was just a no. It was always a no. And there was like no flexibility in it. It's just no is no. So I kind of either had to like make my own stuff or use my imagination. And my parents always like, they encouraged that. So like if I wanted to make something, like my dad would encourage it and he would like lean into it in some ways. So if I needed something, he'd be like, oh, you should use glue for this. I got glue. Let me go get glue. Like he was really helpful in that way. And then he also had a guitar lying around that I think his friend gave him or he like fixed for his friend. And then his friend would just like keep it. So he had like an acoustic guitar that I eventually picked up and I started like teaching myself how to play guitar. And he was like, you know, they were encouraging about that. I didn't get like music lessons or anything, but like my dad kind of knew how to play guitar. Like he knows some chords. So he would show me, or he had like a chord book that he would lend me. So yeah, they were pretty supportive about like, if I wanted to draw, we'll get you a sketchbook or something, you know? Yeah, it was like stuff like that was encouraged. Like maybe they valued that, or it seemed like something that they should foster or something. Yeah.
I know you got into music at some point in your life.
Yeah.
What's the story there? How did that happen?
I mean, I always, from as early as I can remember, I wanted to play guitar and be a rock star. And I was convinced that was what I was going to do. Like games that me and my brother and sister would play would be pretending that we're Guns N' Roses. Like that was a game for like a 6-year-old, pretending that I was like Slash from Guns N' Roses or something. So yeah, I would always ask for a guitar for Christmas or my birthday and never get it. And then eventually I did get one, which is also a weird story because I ended up Christmas morning, I tapped my brother on the head with this like toy guitar that I got. And my dad was just like, if that's what you're going to do with it, this is what's going to happen to it. And he took it out of my hand and just javelin threw it into the kitchen. It hits the corner where the garbage was and just exploded into 1,000 pieces. But then later on in life, when I was maybe like 20 years later, like it ended up becoming like this funny story, even though it was like super traumatic. But I asked him and he was like, I thought it was going to gently land in the garbage and just kind of scare you and whatever. He was like, I didn't think it was going to bust into a million pieces. He said he tried to put it back together, but it was impossible. But yeah, I always wanted to play guitar. And then he had a guitar that I just like taught myself on. I started playing like little, you know, whatever 4-chord songs. And I just got obsessed. I loved it. I played it every single day. I would come home from school and just play guitar. And then I got an electric guitar. Like I think my dad found an electric guitar in the garbage and like fixed it up for me. And then I started playing that. We built like a speaker cabinet. We're Italians from the Bronx, so everything gets built or fixed. Like we don't buy new stuff.
Yeah.
I just got obsessed. I started like writing music. I taught myself how to like record music on tape, like not even like through a computer yet. I just got obsessed. And then eventually later in life, I found another 3 guys who also were obsessed with music. We started a band. It's called Jolly. And we're just like 4 assholes from New York City. And we eventually got signed from some European label. We played a bunch of shows around Manhattan and Brooklyn in 2009. And then like the next year, we got asked to be on a tour. And we went from playing in front of like 20 people in some shitty club in Manhattan to playing in front of 1,500 people in Holland. And then it just kind of took off from there. We just busted our ass. All we thought about, like every decision we made was just, is this getting us closer to getting more fans, writing better songs, getting on tour, creating good merch? Every decision, you know, like where we're going that day, what we're doing, who I'm meeting, am I going out or not? Like everything in my life was just, is this getting me closer to the goal? You know, I had one goal in mind and that's all I cared about in life. I just had tunnel vision and it got us pretty far, you know, like we ended up playing a show in Best Buy Theater in Times Square, which for me for all of us was awesome because we're from New York. It was a really big show. We toured Europe, like some kid from the Bronx. I got to travel all around Europe. We did this for like 10 years.
Wow.
I've been to 37 or something states, like 41 states or something crazy. And like just to see that much stuff just because of music was incredible. And I feel really lucky that like I appreciated every second of it. Yeah. Like I don't feel like I took it for granted or I was just like, oh, you know, this is all I'm getting. Where's my tour bus or whatever? Like every part of it, I was like, this is awesome. And we all felt that way. We're like, this is the most incredible thing we could ever ask for, you know?
Did you always know when you were in grade school and in high school that was the plan, to find a band, to succeed and have a life similar to the one you just described? Or was there a thought that I'm going to have to come up with something after high school and go have a trade or go to college or do something?
Yeah, I didn't think it was actually going to come true.
Yeah.
I thought like, this feels like who I am and what I should be doing, but just knowing society, or I guess it was a lot of what everybody was saying around me. Like everybody was like, you have to go to college, you have to go work at a job, like work in a cubicle, work in an office job because it's better than like maintenance or like being an electrician or whatever. So in my head, I was just like, all right, I guess I have to go to college. I don't really know what I'm going to major in. So like, I'll just do communications or something because that's a degree and like, it'll get me some kind of job. I just felt like I was getting onto the conveyor belt, you know, because I think that's what was expected. Like you'll never make it in music or in art because like nobody does. You have to get really lucky or be rich or something. So I stepped on the conveyor belt, but yeah, I guess there was just whatever inside of me that I think it's the thing that artists have in common. I think that like I got onto the conveyor belt and I was still like, I'm going to play shows after work. Like I'm just going to go by myself. I'll play with like an acoustic guitar and sing, or like my buddy, we used to do it sometimes. And like, we would just go out and like play cover songs or play songs of our own just to keep doing it. And then my friend from college, who while we were in college, we actually didn't play music together. But once we graduated, he was like, oh, I'm like looking for people. I'm looking for like a keyboardist and all this stuff. And I was like, why don't we try to do something? You know, like he already found like a guitarist and he's a drummer. So I was like, oh, I play bass. Like I could play bass and whatever. And he was like, I don't know, like you're a guitarist, but you're turned bassist. And then we ended up just like working together and it worked out awesome. And we're still friends. We still see each other. We still write music. Yeah, we have enough for an album that we're like recording now. So yeah, it just like, I guess I just kept it in my head that like, this is a possibility. There's some version of this that will fit into my life somewhere, but I don't know where. But let me get the job. Let me do the things just in case. And I'm glad I did that because like, it's still an experience. Like I still like all the experiences that I've had. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't give it up. Like, I'm glad it never left my head because I think that's where it gets sad. When like you have a dream and you're just like, it's never going to happen. And you just completely abandon it. As opposed to just like, keep it in your life somewhere or somehow. You know, like you could find a half an hour every day to crowbar that thing into your life. And if it grows and you start spending an hour a day doing it or 2 hours a day doing it, then you know there's something there. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And whatever it is, you know, just like keep something in your life that's like a dream and see if it grows, you know?
How old were you when you got signed by this obscure European label, and how the fuck did that happen?
Oh, actually the first label that we were under was pretty obscure, but the second label is called Inside Out. And they actually have some pretty big like progressive rock bands. They work with people like Mike Portnoy and Devin Townsend, and I don't know if your listeners know who they are, but like in the progressive rock scene, they're a pretty big deal. We were just putting out a shit ton of content and reaching out to people on
what age? How old are you at this
back
time?
then? It was MySpace, so I think this was like 2008, 2009. So what was I, 22 or something? 23 maybe. Yeah, we were just like MySpacing everybody. We had like, I think like 7 different MySpace accounts because you can only go up to a certain amount of friends on MySpace. Yeah. So we had to have multiple accounts because we kept going past the amount of friends you're allowed to have because we were just messaging everybody. So like we would go to like a band's site and just look at all their friends and just message every one of their friends and be like, hey, check us out. Because we were just crazy and obsessed. And then eventually it was Facebook. And we were just like, we just got into the social media thing really quick just because that's just what seemed like it would be good. So at first, the Swedish label reached out to us, and then eventually Inside Out, they saw us on tour. We were touring with like a Polish band that is under this label. And they were like, we want to sign you. You're going to be like the American band that we have, because they were doing like mainly European bands. So they're like, you guys are like the Americans. You're from New York. Like you have a vibe. Like it feels like rock with you guys, as opposed to a lot of the European bands are more, they only care about like technical playing and like scales and all this stuff. And we were just a little bit more like, I guess, rock and roll than they were. Like, we didn't care about that stuff. We were semi-technical, but we were just like, I don't know. We just had more of like a different attitude, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, so it was awesome. We were like touring, we were traveling around, like playing shows that were incredible. And then the greatest part of it about it was just like meeting people who like knew our songs, and like some people, they would like recite lyrics of ours that we wrote and be like, this changed my life. Like, I broke up with my girlfriend because of this song. Like, I knew I was in a bad place and now I'm in such a better place. And to hear stuff like that and like have people connect with like just some words you wrote or like a melody line that you wrote or something, and then you see them afterwards, and like you meet them in person. It's so cool, you know, because you're doing it for yourself. Like, we're writing these songs because we just love what we're writing, and then we get to put it out and be like, look at what we did. And then other people are like, holy shit, I love this. Yeah. Like, it's such a satisfying feeling, you know?
Do you remember the details of like when you guys got signed? Was there a financial component? Obviously, I mean, you said how many countries that you got to travel a lot. Did they pay the band a certain amount of money and then paid for the tour? Like, what were the? I don't know if you remember what the details were. What you got? Well, what happened?
I mean, basically, they kind of promised a lot. They gave us an advance to record, which wasn't that much. Like, it wasn't, you know, I mean, some people now are getting paid like $1 million or something as an advance. We got a very small advance, which is fine for us at the time because we were like self-producing everything. Like, Lewis, the drummer, would basically produce and record everything and like mix everything. We were doing everything ourselves. Like, all our videos we made ourselves, just because we were also a very artistic band. So we all had interests in other things. So we would make our own videos, make our own album artwork, do all this stuff. But they didn't really help as much as they promised at first, which is a trap that we fell in the beginning. So when we first got signed, we were like, this is awesome. We're famous. Like, that's it. We could sit back and like, they're going to take care of everything. Because the way they made it sound is like, now that you're with us, you'll have access to these other bands. We put you on tours with them. We do all this stuff. It's going to be great. And what ended up happening was we shipped them the album. They had distribution, which was great for us because it reached more people. But then it's not like they were putting us on tours with people that they thought we would be good with or putting us on festivals. It was still us having to work to get those tours. So at first, for the first couple of months, I think we kind of sat back and we were like, we're good, you know, like, we got this. They're taking care of it. And then we quickly realized, like, nobody's working for you. Like, if something's going to happen, it's going to be because of the work that you put into it. You know, I wish we knew that sooner, and we wouldn't have wasted some time and felt the disappointment, I think.
Remind me the name of that band.
Which band?
The band that was traveling all over.
What do you mean?
You said you got to visit 40 or some states, and you were also in Europe signed by
Oh, yeah. So we toured with a Polish band called Riverside. We actually did a few tours with them. One of our biggest European tours were with them. So we got to see basically every country west of Russia we went to, which was awesome. And then we did an American tour with a band called Reign of Kindo and Scale the Summit. We also did an American tour with Riverside. There are a few different bands that we toured with, but those are like the most memorable, just because like this Polish band Riverside, we just like have a connection now. Like, they're such good people. And at first we were kind of scared of them because like some of them were like, you know, had like a bunch of tattoos, and we thought they were ignoring us because they were like the bigger band. And then it turned out that they just didn't know English like that well. Like, they were very insecure about their English. So that's why they weren't talking to us. And we thought like, this bigger band, they're just ignoring us. Like, what the fuck? And then it turned out like all the tension broke when like we just had like this conversation one day, and they were just like, no, like, we're really embarrassed about our English because we're from Poland and this whole thing. And we were like, we thought you were just like these big tattooed guys who were just like ignoring us. And then from then on, like, they're the sweetest guys. Like, they're awesome. Like, it's like very friendly, and they're awesome. And for our career, it was just great because like, it's so many memories that like we wouldn't have had. They were our introduction into like touring and like being in Europe and like seeing how the music industry runs. So, yeah, I just feel like a very close connection to that band in particular.
How did you transition into painting? How did that happen?
Oh, so yeah, so two of the guys in Jolly had babies basically in the same year. And we just kind of had this conversation, this realization that we were pushing really hard and we were really trying to make this a career and like do this for a living. And I think when the babies came, it was just like real life just kind of hits you. And like, you know that we're not going to be able to tour as much if they want to be with their family, you know, for the appropriate amount of time, whatever that means. The money wasn't good enough to live a lifestyle where you have a kid and like you're really going forward with your life.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, you see all these people around you. You get to a certain age that like everybody around you is starting to like, you know, they've been working now for 10 years and we've been in a band for 10 years. So like they're having their work success. They're moving up. They're buying houses. They're getting married. They're doing all these things. And I know for me at the time, I wasn't married. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. And like my only focus was music and like doing this thing. And I wasn't with anybody. I wasn't having kids. And yeah, there was a part of me that was like, am I holding back the rest of my life for this thing?
Yeah.
And we even met some like pretty big musicians that we perceived as they're doing it, they're making it. And if we get to their level, we'll be good. And then you meet them and they're like, I'm on the road 10 months a year. I never see my kids. I'm always hustling because like if I don't hit the next album cycle, I don't make my money for that year. So it's just this constant hustle that like on one hand, there's a really awesome part of the lifestyle. And on the other hand, there's like kind of a dark, sad existence.
Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah. It's a constant grind. It's never easy unless you become Metallica or like Coldplay or something.
Yeah.
It's just a constant grind, you know? And there's a portion of your life where like, I love the grind, you know, like in my 20s and stuff, like the grind was awesome. I was all about it. Like I'll work till 4 a.m. I'll go on tour, do all this stuff. And then after a while, you're like, I don't want to eat like shit anymore. I feel horrible. Like, yeah. Like eventually you're just like, all right, maybe I should find another way to like make money and maybe I should find somebody. I would like to buy a house. Like you kind of want these other areas of your life to start thriving and like raising up with everything else. So they had babies. We stopped touring. I didn't want to start another band, but I knew I wanted to do something creative. Like I couldn't just give up some idea of a creative outlet. So I used to draw and paint a little bit when I was a kid. And I always liked doing like a lot of visual work for Jolly. Like I would do some of the album artwork, or I made 2 cartoons for like videos. And like that was really fun to make. So I was like, I'm going to start painting out of nowhere. I just want to like paint again. And I mean, weirdly enough, the guitarist from that band Riverside, who I loved, he died suddenly. He went to a concert and he had like a brain aneurysm or something, like a blood clot that went to his brain, and he just died. And he was like a young guy. I think he was like 39 when he died, or 40. And he was awesome. The sweetest guy ever. So I just had this idea. I was like, I want to paint his portrait or something that felt like him. So I listened to his album over and over again. And I was like trying to paint him in this like splattery way. And I painted one and it didn't feel like him. And I painted the other. And then the other one, it just like felt like his soul, you know, like it didn't look exactly like him, but it just felt like him. And I like that idea of getting a feeling of a person from a portrait that doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like him. And then what I really loved about it was the process of it. And I think that's important. If you don't love the process of the thing you're doing, you're never going to be consistent or keep doing it. So I liked it because it was one of the first times in my life that I, you know, because to paint something like that, it's hours of work. So for hours, I would listen to his album and I would just like kind of reflect on our relationship or like how he was, what it meant to me, what death means to me. Like I let my thoughts just run wild, like while I was working. And I never could do that with music. Like with music, I'm like having fun and it's a very physical, visceral feeling, but my thoughts aren't going, you know, like I'm too caught up in like, I'm playing something, I'm singing something, I'm trying to interact with the audience. And like that experience is awesome, but it's not like I could reflect while I'm doing all this stuff. Like I'm juggling so many different things. I can't like think at the same time. So in this process, for whatever reason, I felt like I could actually like think through what things meant to me. And I really liked that. So then I just kept like replicating it. I would just like paint other things that I thought would lead me to like think about other areas in my life, like relationships or my parents or whatever the thing is that I wanted to think about. And I just found myself like exploring these different hallways of my brain or something, or my emotions really. I think it was also one of the first times I got more like emotional in a weird way. Like I remember painting something and I cried for the first time, I think, in my life.
Whoa.
Or like as an adult.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think I cried since I was like a kid who maybe like scraped his knee or got hurt or something. But I remember, and we talked about this before we started, like with drinking and stuff. I think that kind of numbs you out. And I don't drink anymore, but I did for a very long time. And I think it kind of numbed me out. But I remember painting something, and I think it was like, 2015 or 16 when I started painting. And just like being so into this thing and like thinking so deep about something that I actually started crying. And I was like, wow, this actually feels like really good to cry and like hit this emotion and get this thing out. So yeah, I think I just fell in love with it for that reason, because I just really tapped into like emotion in a different way than I ever had, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember what that was? Was it a drawing of someone specific that triggered that?
I don't. I kind of remember what I was thinking about, and I don't want to say it here. I remember what I was thinking about, but I don't remember exactly what I was painting. But I remember I was thinking about something specific, and I started crying, and I just remember feeling like it felt really good.
Yeah.
You know, like I used to be scared of crying, and I think a lot of people probably are. But now I look at it as almost like holding in a sneeze or holding in laughter or something. Like it feels so good to let it out.
For sure.
Just like be in it for a while, like not even trying to stop yourself, you know? It also helped that I was alone. I wasn't in front of anybody. So I could just I just cry. It was so weird at the time, like thinking about it. But yeah, it felt awesome. And just like to get into that emotion like that.
Had you always been a painter? Is that something that you had in your, I know you said you like to draw things when you were a kid, but had you taken 20, 30 years off and then picked it right back up, or had it?
Not really. I mean, I drew as a kid. I used to like to draw a lot, and I would always draw like little weird things. And then we got like a painting set when I was a kid, and I used to watch like Bob Ross.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't like painting those things because it never looked good to me, and like I can never do the trees the right way. And he would just do these really nice things that looked so easy, and then I would try to do it, and it looked horrible. But that was just like really my only experience painting. But I just remembered liking it for some reason. So at the time when I started painting again, I was doing a lot of stuff on the computer. I was doing like a lot of like computer animation, like digital design work. And I think I was just like, I remember actually what happened. I was trying to find the thing I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I was trying to do some like digital artwork. I was doing like a lot of Photoshop stuff and like photo manipulation. I was doing some photography at the time. I was trying to make videos, and painting was one of the things I was trying. I think I was trying to find what my thing was going to be. And I just remember spending a weekend painting. I painted for a whole weekend. And at the end of the weekend, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm not staring at a computer. I'm using my body, and I'm like, it feels like kind of physical. I can like zone in or zone out, however you want to look at it. But I like really got into a flow of just like moving the brush and like discovering, like mixing two paints together and like what that feels like and how the brush or the knife works. And I just love the feeling of not being at a computer and just doing something physical. And I was like, yeah, this is the thing. Like, this is what I'm liking. And I really loved it. And then it just took off. Like, it really spiraled out of control. It became an obsession. I think that's how I get, like, I find something that I like and I just get completely obsessed with it. Especially after I painted that portrait, and I just was so proud of it. Like, it felt so good to me, the way it looked, the way it felt. I showed the band, I showed his wife, and like they were just like, this is so like deep and powerful. Like, thank you for doing this. Like they felt what I felt out of it. So I was like, this feels good. Like, it feels like I'm putting something out there that's like doing a thing. You know, it's like the music thing. Like, it feels nice to show people a song and they're like, I get it, you know? I never had an Instagram before that. Yeah. And I don't even know what compelled me to do this, because in general, I'm not like that, but it might be from jolly days of like social media. I got an Instagram like that weekend. I just made an Instagram, and I posted the 3 paintings I made that weekend. And then pretty much every night from then until probably 2021, I painted a new painting. Like I was painting every single day, like as much as I could. I would finish work and I would paint again. During the pandemic was the greatest thing for me ever. I was a software engineer at the time. So after Jolly, I went through a software engineering boot camp, and then I became a software engineer. Work would end at 5:30. I would take an hour walk. I would come home and I would paint until probably midnight or 1 a.m.
Whoa.
And some nights I was making smaller paintings, but I would paint like 4 paintings in a night and just like post all of them the next day, or just like see which one I liked. And then the next day try to like replicate it, or try to replicate that style. Or it was just experimental time, like to the max, you know. Like every day I was just experimenting, like how does the knife work if I flick it like this, like what does that do, like what does that like doing that makes a different splatter than doing this, or like rubbing the knife this way does this thing. And I'm like, it's all discovery for me, you know. I didn't go to art school. I didn't really paint before that, so like it was just pure exploration, which is so fun, you know. And like that kept me going, because every night I would be surprised at the things I made. So like it's not like I knew how it was going to come out. I had no idea what it was going to look like. So then by the end of the night, I was like, wow, this thing's cool. Like in the morning, I'm going to take another look at this and see what I think. And then the morning would come, I would look, I'd be like, that, it didn't even feel like I made it. It was just like, this is now a thing that came through me. And then I would get excited. I would post about it. And it wasn't to sell it or anything, because I wasn't selling anything at the time. I was just like, look at what I did. Let's see if anybody cares. And that was just nice, because there was a lot of positive feedback. Also, obviously, some negative feedback, because you're on the internet. So, you know, but yeah, it was awesome just to hear people liked it. And then to have somebody for the first time just like DM me, and they were just like, how much is this? And I'm just like, I have no idea. $50? Yeah, I think I sold my first painting for like $50. It was like a small, probably like 8x10 painting or something like that. And then just, like I said, it was only because I kept doing it and I was like putting in the time. And then that became the same thing as Jolly. It was like every decision was, does this get me closer to painting for a living, or like making myself a thing? You know, like how do I create the artist of Anthony? How does Anthony become a painter? What does that look like? How do I get my work out there? How do I get people to see it? How do I paint bigger paintings? How do I get into possibly a gallery? You know, like just every decision was geared towards painting. And if it wasn't getting me closer to there, I just wasn't doing it. Whoa. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out with people who like, I didn't want to waste time anymore. It was just like, what can I do that is going to be best for this as a career? Yeah. And everything was geared toward that.
Where do you think that energy came from, and the discipline to do that from 6 to midnight every day?
A lot of negative criticism from my parents growing up. And no, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I did grow up in like an immigrant neighborhood, and I know like typically immigrants are like very hardworking. Yeah. That's just like the idea. It's just like the American dream. Like if you work hard, you'll get to this thing. I think it was also seeing like what happened with Jolly. I think it was like, I think we started to see like when you really put work into something, or if you're really busting your ass at something, like stuff does happen. Yeah. And it takes a long time sometimes, but if you're consistently doing it, like you will get to a certain place. So I think I just took that into, I don't know. It just became, again, maybe it's just something in like an artist's brain that you just get super focused. I also probably have some like form of ADHD, which I think everybody does nowadays, but I think it just is different for everybody. So like when I find something that I like, and if I really like something, I'm just laser focused on that thing, and like I obsess over it. My new obsession is jujitsu, which I told you before. Yeah, yeah. Like I think I'm gonna just quit art and just become an MMA fighter now. No, I would never do that. That's crazy to me. But jujitsu is awesome, and it actually helps me out so much. But yeah, I just get obsessed with stuff, and it's just like it's the learning aspect of it too. Because like jujitsu is the same thing. Like I just want to learn as much as possible, and like just different ways to move your body. And that was that whole period, especially during the pandemic, was like discovering like, what's my style? Why is this a style? Not that I was consciously thinking about it, but it was just like, if I do this with the brush, or if I do this with the knife, or like if I distort the face this way, what can happen? And it was always that curiosity. Like, I wonder what that would look like. Let me try it. You know, it was trying not to shy away from like messing up a painting. Cause if you're scared to like mess something up, you're never going to like push the boundaries far enough or like see like what you could do. So it's a lot of experimenting.
While you're doing this experimenting, while you're painting, are you mostly, I'd love to know about the psychological state of those 6-hour sessions. Like, are you in flow state most of that time? What is it? Anxiety producing? What's the...
No, it was actually really calming and like relaxing and therapeutic. I was thinking about a lot of stuff. I didn't paint for 6 hours straight. So like I would go in and out of it. So like some of it is also like prepping a canvas or like sketching something. Like there's different steps to it. So it's not like I'm painting for 6 hours straight. I'm also like taking a break. Like I'll just sit down in a chair for an hour and just stare at it. You know, that's like a big part of the process is just like understanding what's happening, you know, before you, like, you don't, I don't know, sometimes you do it fast and sometimes there were a lot of times I feel like that just sitting back and just like getting familiar with like where things are going and what it's feeling like. And it's like having a conversation or something, you know? But yeah, very therapeutic. It never felt like anxious or bad. It didn't feel like work. Like it just felt like this is what I'm doing now. Like this is my life. This is what I do. Like some people after work, you eat dinner, you do a thing, you watch TV, you read a book, and you go to sleep, and that's your routine. Yeah. My routine just happened to be I finish dinner, I prep a canvas, I sketch something, I paint, I sit down for an hour and look at it, I paint a little bit more, and then I go to sleep. Like it just became my routine because I'm a psychopath. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but how long did it take from the time you started posting to Instagram to the time someone asked you that question, what does this cost?
That I don't actually remember. It might have been, I honestly don't remember. My concept of time sometimes is weird because like it could have been 1 month or it could have been 6 months. It was inside of the first year. I don't remember exactly how long it was though. I feel like it happened sort of, maybe like 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, somewhere 6 months.
And were you seeing pretty a steady increase in interest on Instagram in your stuff? Like, I'd love to hear about that.
I was only because I think I was very consistent with posting. Yeah. Since that weekend when I first posted, I literally posted every single day at 9 a.m. from 2015 or somewhere in that area until probably 2021. Every single day at 9 a.m.
Whoa.
I have so many posts. It's crazy. I mean, I've deleted some of them or like archived some of them because like it gets out of control. But right now I probably have like thousands of posts. I don't know. But it was like every painting I made that I really liked and connected with them. A lot of them I just threw away or like painted over or something. But like the one that I made that I really liked from the night before got posted the next morning at 9 a.m. I like would write something to it, either some like lyric or just thing that I thought of. Usually I would think of like a phrase in the middle of painting it. Just some phrase would come to my head. And then that became the feel of the painting or the title. So I would post that. But yeah, it was like clockwork. I would do it every single day. And I don't know why I just got like very, it was like very habitual. Like I would do every single morning. I just knew it, like it had to be posted. I don't know why, but that's just the thing that I fell into and I just started doing it. And I just found it helped. Like I would post. I was also very excited to post it. It didn't feel like nowadays. I feel like I'm like, all right, I should post something because I haven't posted in a few days. Like it's kind of that part feels like a job and it's kind of annoying actually. But back then I just felt like I can't wait to show people this. Like it was like a little kid coming home with like a test or a drawing or something. And they're like, look at this thing. Like I genuinely had that energy that was like, I can't wait for people to see this. Like, what are they going to think about it? What are they going to say? Are they going to like it? I love it. So if somebody doesn't like it, they're crazy because it's awesome. So I was just like genuinely excited to post every morning. It wasn't for some like contrived reason. Like I was, it was like very authentic.
Yeah. Just like the people you grew up with. A lot of authenticity.
Yeah, very authentic. Yeah.
I'd love to hear about the business story. So you get that first message of how much this costs. Do you start getting those questions once a month, once every week? Like I'd love to hear about how the business side of this work. What's the story from that first inbound? What does this cost to now?
Yeah. So I mean, it started off very it's probably kind of slow. Like, I think that one was just like surprising, but it really gave me like a boost of confidence almost. Like, it was like, wow, somebody somewhere wants to buy a thing that I made. Like, it almost, I got like a little imposter syndrome too, because I was like, I'm not really a painter. Like, is what I painted this on okay? I was also using paint from Home Depot. Like, I would just use bare paint. And then I started to think, like, is this thing gonna just like what's the word? Not incinerate, whatever.
Disintegrate.
Yeah. Is the thing just gonna like disintegrate and then they're gonna want their money back? Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, I think I charged them like $50 or $75 or something like that. And then it started coming a little bit more and more. So I really had to start thinking about like, well, how much are these things? Like, what should I be selling them for? And I was just grateful anybody was buying them. So they were all pretty low. And then I started doing things. I thought this was like a clever marketing thing. Like, I would look for influencers. They weren't even called influencers at the time. There was like people who were like doing well on Instagram. I would like look out for people who I thought were not painters, but somebody doing artistic things. So, like, I don't know if you know that photographer, Miss Hatton.
I don't think
she takes a lot of photos of like New York stuff. I saw her and I really liked her photos of New York. She's from New York. I'm from New York. So I ended up painting her portrait and I just DM'd her. She had like 1 million followers at the time or 500,000. I don't remember, but it seemed like big at the time. And I was like, if I DM her with this, like, it's so good. She'll write me back and like, she'll post about it. And she ended up writing me back and she was like, let's meet up. She was like, I would love this painting. And I made, it was like 36 inches by 28 or something like that. I met up with her. I gave it to her. She posted about it and that got me a bump of followers. I was like, this is awesome. It was fun. Wow. It was a fun project to do. And also it's working. Like, whatever my idea of marketing is, that's working. So let me try to replicate that. So then I would try to increment up and find like bigger and bigger people who I still thought I had a chance of getting to. And if they post it, like, more people will know me. So yeah, I did Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, sure.
I painted a thing for him and like instantly he wrote me back and he was like, come by the office, let's do it. And I go by the office and I do like a Daily V thing, like his video blog. So yeah, that made me feel like I was like getting into, I don't know, like just reaching bigger people and like a bigger audience or something. But then with the pricing specifically, hopefully he's not listening, but I'm just going to say this now. So separately from the Gary Vee thing, this just is happenstance. Gary Vee's CMO reached out to me and he was like, I found your work. I love it. I want Kermit the Frog.
Whoa.
Because we can go into this some other time if you want, but I got into doing like these pop characters from like this really dark stuff to doing like these bright, colorful,
cool
pop characters, but I did them in my way just because like I lean dark anyway, so I'm going to find the darker side of these subjects. So he was like, I want to Kermit the Frog. And I was like, how did you hear? Like, did you hear about me from Gary? Or he was like, no, I didn't even know that you met with him. Because this was like 6 months later or a year later, maybe. And he was like, how much is it? So I had a friend who actually worked for him or just Gary Vee's company or something. I forgot how he knew him, but he was like, he reached out to you? He's a millionaire. I was like, well, if he has all this money and he's reaching out to me, like, I've reached a different level now.
Yeah.
So that day, I doubled all my prices. So I wasn't charging $75 for a painting anymore. I was charging more. But I would have probably charged him like, I think at the time it was probably like $2,000 for that size that he was asking for. And I just doubled it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's going to be $4,000. And I was so nervous.
Yeah.
Like, that seems way too much. And instantly he was like, done. I'll take 3 of them. He was like, I want one for me and 2 of my friends. And I was like, what the fuck? And in my head, I'm like, I could have said $10,000 and he would have said yes. But yeah, to me, it was just like, and this is like a thing with artists. It's just like, your stuff is worth either what it's worth to you. And you have to kind of be honest with that. Otherwise, you might not sell stuff. Yeah. But like, what is it worth to you? Or is there a demand for it? Like it's like a supply and demand thing. So if I'm not being reached out by anybody for work, my prices would stay low.
Yeah.
But if a bunch of people are reaching out to me, I don't want to make 1,000 paintings a year.
Yeah.
I'd rather make 100 a year and charge, 10 times more. But now if I'm getting, it almost feels like that was like a step up in like my audience or something. Like if I'm getting the CMO of VaynerMedia reaching out to me and asking me for a painting, and he's giving it to his 3 friends who are probably pretty powerful, like my worth has gone up.
Yeah.
So yeah, from then I doubled everything. And the funny thing is, I thought like now nobody's going to buy this stuff. But the funny thing, it was almost like I leveled myself up and I had a different audience like asking me for paintings. Because it's like art is also like, I mean, you do have to have like the talent and the taste and all that, but then there also is like the perception side. So I think instantly when somebody sees something's worth more, they're like, that's worth more for a reason and I need one.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know? Which is kind of shitty, but that's just human nature. You know, I think if he saw my stuff being sold for $50, he'd probably be like, this guy is not really doing it, so I'm not going to buy anything from him. But he happened to like my work, and then I guess the price sounded good for him too. So
how long ago did that happen?
I don't remember. That was probably in like 2017, maybe? Yeah.
At some point, were you able to leave software engineering entirely and devote yourself to this full time?
Yeah. So I guess in the middle of the pandemic or when the pandemic was like tapering off, that's when I took the leap. Because like things were going really well by then. Like I was like keeping track of everything I was selling. I was keeping track of like where my prices were at and like, I guess like velocity or something, like just how like in demand my stuff was and like how much I was making per month or per year. And I did get to a point where I was like, I'm making a pretty good salary from painting, which is crazy to think that. Like I was making way more money from painting than I ever was from Jolly. And I was just like, right now, it's incredible that like I have my software engineering salary and then I have basically almost another salary.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I think I'm going to do this. And it was at the very start of a relationship, was crazy and probably not a good idea to do it then. But yeah, I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job. And if I can do this half the time and like build it up to this, I think if I did it full time, like it would be even better. So, and then that was when everything kind of fell apart. No, it was just like super stressful at first because like when I had a job, you have this like safety net of income and like everything's good. I'm just painting stuff that I like painting. If I don't sell anything, who cares? Like I have a salary, like it's great. So when I first quit, I really fell into this. Also, my life was insane at the time. Like I had to leave my apartment building because my landlord was selling the building. So that's where I painted out of. So I'm like moving. I need to find a new studio. I'm quitting my job. I'm in a new relationship. Like it was insane. But yeah, I went through a pretty long period of like, I need to paint stuff that's going to sell now. So now I'm like in my head about what I'm painting and I'm trying to paint for people instead of like really painting for myself and like enjoying what I was doing. And that
audience capture.
Yeah. It took a while to get out of, and it was very scary. It was horrible. I hated that whole time in my life, and it lasted a while. Like it was almost like a year, I would say. I was just like misery. Yeah. I was hating everything I made. Like I was doing commissions for people still and like painting stuff. But even the commissions I was doing, I don't know. I was like putting myself under such pressure and I was like overthinking. Because like the best work comes from when you're not thinking at all, when you're just like doing it. And it just is. And it's like, it's just taking on a life of its own. And now I was painting with like all this stuff on my mind and like, is this going to sell? Are they going to like this? Should I get into galleries? All of a sudden I started thinking about galleries and having shows, which I never cared at all about that. But then I got it in my head that like I need to start having shows. If I'm going to do this for real, like it needs to be shows and I need to be painting stuff that means this thing and like all this stuff. And I way overthinking and it was not good.
Complicating things.
Very much so. Yeah. Like art is all about like getting down to the basics and like keeping things simple, I think. Like that's when the best stuff happens. And I just wasn't there anymore. I was like way overcomplicating everything.
In retrospect, what do you think was the fundamental mistake, if there is one? I mean, you may have already said this, but what do you think in retrospect, where did you go off track?
I think it was now I was tying money to it, you know, because like now I felt like I had to be very conscious of like the money part, which I don't care about money at all. Like I don't buy anything. I'm not a materialistic person. I bought a 18 pack of Hanes undershirts from Kmart like 17 years ago. And those are still the clothes that I wear. Like I do not give a fuck about any of it. But when I went full time, now I'm like, I'm in this new relationship. I have to pay my rent. I have to buy food. I don't have rich parents. So everything I do must sell. You know, like I have to be selling stuff because like, how am I going to pay for rent? How am I going to do this? I put myself under such financial stress. And when I quit my job to do Jolly full time, things are so different. I was like 23.
Yeah.
Like I didn't care.
Yeah,
I was living in an apartment. My rent was $300 a month. Like it didn't matter. But I quit to do painting full time when I was already like, I don't remember what I was like 36, 37 or something. Like I'm an old man by then. Like now I have responsibilities. I need to keep up an apartment and all this stuff. So yeah, I was kind of freaking out. I linked painting with money. And I think that was a big problem. I couldn't just paint freely anymore. Like now I was really thinking about it as like almost like a job and like how much I was producing in a job instead of like, this is just fun. And like, it wasn't experimental anymore. Like I was just saying before, and I'm just realizing this now that like during the pandemic when it was all experimentation, like I'm learning and I'm like discovering, all that went out the window. And all I was doing was like, this is what I know how to do. This is what I know will sell. Do more of this.
Yeah.
And like all of the fun went away because there was no more experimenting. And then I remember one night, I was trying to really treat it like a job and like go into the studio at 9 a.m., paint till 5 and whatever. Whereas I used to, it was all night painting and my brain wakes up in a different way at night. So one night I was like, I'm going to the studio tonight and I'm just going to paint. I'm not going to work on any commissions. I'm just going to paint something for myself. And that night I made like something that to this day, I love what I made. And it's the experience of it. It's the idea that I did that. So there's a lot of reasons why I love it, but I actually think it's a really cool painting. And after I painted, I was like, this is what I need to do. Like I have to paint stuff for myself and that just things that I think is fun and awesome and not worry about like what's going to sell. Cause even after I made it, I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to care about this thing because it's not the stuff that was selling. And then I ended up posting it the next day and people really liked it. And that made me really happy that like something that I didn't expect that people were going to like because it was like a little bit more weird and like experimental. And they ended up liking it more than the stuff that like used to sell well, you know? So that just like reopened my mind to the idea that like, yeah, I need to be doing this for myself. I can't be painting just stuff that I think and hope is going to sell.
In retrospect, do you think it was a mistake to quit the paid job, the software job, or not?
Absolutely.
It was a mistake.
I think I quit at the wrong time. I'll be honest. I think if I quit at a different time, it might have felt better. I think the transition could have been easier. Although I think I would have fallen into this trap no matter when I quit. I think when I quit made it last longer. I think I was in that situation for a lot longer. But had I quit at a different time, I probably would have gone through that transition a little bit easier. Yeah. Or if things were different, like if that wasn't at the start of a new relationship, or possibly if it wasn't right when I was getting kicked out of my apartment and having to find a new studio, things would have been different, I think. Yeah.
Additional stressors on top of additional stressors.
The timing was very bad. Yeah. Poor timing. I didn't read the room.
How are things now?
Things now are good. Yeah. Yeah, I think I just like found my flow. I found like a rhythm. I like what I'm doing. I'm kind of in an experimental phase right now again, you know, which I think is important to go through. So I think before I thought I always had to be painting something that was going to sell. And now I go through phases where I let myself just like have fun, you know, because I need to like try new things and either paint new subjects or paint in a different, like a style that's maybe a little different for me to keep things interesting and like lively, you know? So yeah, things have been good.
I'd love to ask you about how you now think about success. I mean, obviously you just said this, like very few people can make money selling their art, their painting in the world. And even if you're getting, you know, $1,000 or a few $1,000s, again, that's the very, very small percentage of people who ever get to do that. How do you think about success as it pertains to your art? Have you already arrived at what you regard as successful? Are you still grasping? I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on that.
That's actually a great question because I think it's so different for everybody. My idea of success used to be, and this was from the band, we all had this idea. It's not about like being rich or like having a shitload of money. Our idea of success in the band was if we could just pay our bills and just get by on only doing music for a living, that's successful. Like to be able to put music out there, live a very modest lifestyle, awesome. Like don't need a mansion or a Bugatti or anything like that.
Yeah.
So then when I was going into painting full time, I had the same idea in my head. I was just like, if I could afford my portion of groceries and rent and all this stuff, like that's awesome. And now I just think like if I make stuff that I still love, and if I'm making stuff that I love and I'm still like learning and loving, like enjoying the process, I think that's success. Which is something that I've said to like other people that I met who are doing art and like have a day job or whatever. If you're doing it for a hobby, really anything you're doing, it could be successful if you have a job and you're making art that you love. You know, you don't necessarily need to, it doesn't have to be tied to finances at all. You know, like if you're not getting paid for it or if it's making some money but not enough money for you to quit, that's still successful having that like artistic outlet, I think, you know, which is just different than it used to be because that time period where I wasn't happy with like the paintings I was making, I felt like a failure. Like I didn't feel successful at all. Even though like I was making money, I didn't feel like a success because like I wasn't loving what I was doing. It was a grind. It was horrible. So yeah, just if you're still able to produce stuff that you love, I think that's success. I think that's the most awesome thing.
I'd love to also ask you about what you think about Instagram. I mean, almost every artist I've met for this show is either addicted to Instagram or reliant upon it heavily that's where all the artists seem to be. That's where they all are at this point. You know, I know you said at one point it has felt like it's more of a job having to post these days.
Yeah.
How do you think about that platform as it pertains to art in general and your artistic journey?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. I mean, I feel like a boomer saying this because it's not that long ago, but like back in my day when I was first posting on Instagram, it did feel different. And I've talked to a lot of people about this and they agree that like the community felt so different. So like I was really excited to post because I knew the artists I were following. Does that sentence make sense? The artists I was following? Who knows? The artists that I was following and the people who were following me, I knew that they were going to see it. Like the engagement was so much higher. I knew they were seeing it. And it felt so good to like know that I really felt like I was building a community around like my stuff and then around the stuff that other people, I felt like I was in a world with certain people. There was like a certain group of artists and a certain group of audience that I just felt like we were in this world and this ecosystem that we were all sharing our art and the audience was like giving us their feedback and like, you know, whatever that was, it just really felt like a little community that I was a part of. And I was excited to share it. I was excited when people commented and like reading the comments. There were some people that I just knew their Instagram handles just because I saw their comments so often and I would reply. There was like a way of joking in the comments that like people just kind of understood because it just evolved that way and it felt so good. And now it just feels like a cesspool of shit. I mean, I hate to say that, but there's huge production companies that are behind a lot of these posts now. So like the posts are just so high quality. You're competing with, you know, Paramount producing like posts and like all these big production companies like posts and a lot of advertisements now. I barely see artists that I follow. Like I barely see their posts. They could just get buried in like all this stuff. And it is very addictive, like, especially now that it's like a little bit more real based, like it is very addicting. Some of these posts are incredible. They're genius, you know, like you're scrolling through, it could be the stupidest post and you're just sucked in, but I'm not seeing art anymore. I don't see that many artists. I don't know what your experience is like, but I feel like I see a lot of the viral stuff and like, you know, stupid dances or like pranks or like whatever. There was all these women just shaking their butt now all over Instagram. And like, it was never like that. Like, it seemed like very artist based, or at least like my version of Instagram was very artist like based. A lot of photographers, a lot of painters, just like putting their stuff out there. And all you had to do, the reason why it was so exciting was I would literally wake up in the morning, take a picture of the painting. I would like edit it a little bit so like the colors looked like what they looked like in person. And then I just press post and that's it. Now you have to think of like, how can I turn this into like a flashy reel, or like, is this image going to grab attention so it actually gets into some algorithm and people actually see it? So it just feels different. I think that's why it feels like a job. It doesn't feel like a genuine community anymore. It feels like I'm just competing with whatever, Miramax, you know?
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Last thing I'd love to ask you is for any advice you would have. You know, you've had multiple careers in the arts. What advice you would give to a younger version of yourself or a friend who is interested in pursuing the arts to become able to live a life similar to the way you did? I think you gave a good definition of success, of being able to basically do your art and pay your bills, simply put. Yeah. What have you learned that matters, that's important for people just starting out to consider in that journey?
I would say become an electrician. No, I would say, I don't know, there's a few different things. One is consistency. I think consistency wins. I think if you can if you can do the thing, if you could find something that you love, and if you're able to do it for years, however that looks in your lifestyle, I think that you're going to win, you know? I think if you have a job, you don't have to look to be like a full-time artist or like whatever. I think find a way to fit something you love into your life for whatever you have to start out, whether it's 15 minutes a day or a half an hour a day. Do that and see if it grows into your lifestyle. Because so many people are just like, either I don't have the time or it's not worth it if I'm not going to be doing this full time or like be making a living out of this. It's worth it. And you do have the time. You're lying to yourself if you think you don't have the time. I have a kid. I know people who have kids, who have jobs, and they're finding a way to fit stuff into their life. Watch one less episode of a show and fit it into your life, and you'll do it. Because then it'll grow. I actually got this from Mark Zuckerberg. I was listening to some bizarre interview that he was doing with Jerry Seinfeld. And Zuckerberg was like, I made this New Year's resolution that I was going to run a mile every day. And Seinfeld was like, what's the deal? A mile's so easy. And Zuckerberg was like, yeah, but if I have my running shoes on and I run a mile, that's easy. So for the first week, I run a mile. But my shoes are already on, my shorts are on, I'm out there, I already did a mile, so now I'll just do 2 miles because I'm out there. And then eventually 3 miles, and then he was like, I just ran a marathon. Like now I'm up to running a marathon because I fit it into my life and it just grew, and now this is what I'm doing. So I heard that like somewhere when I started painting. So I was like, every single day I'm going to do something. Even if I don't feel like painting, if I could prep a canvas and that takes a half an hour, that's what I've done that day. And I only need to do that because now the next day, that canvas is prepped already. So now the next day, I don't have to spend the time doing that canvas. And then it just grows. And then eventually, I'm doing it from 6 p.m. till midnight, you know? And that is how it grew, actually. I would just do a little bit every day. Either I would sketch something and that would take a half an hour. And then the next week, I would spend an hour on it. And then the next week, I was doing 2 hours. Till eventually, I'm almost doing it like a job every day. Like I'm putting in like pretty serious time into building this thing right after I just worked for 8 hours, you know? But that's just, I'm crazy. So that's why I did that. You don't have to do that. But if it does grow to an hour every day or 2 hours a day, you will 100% feel fulfilled. You're going to feel so much better that you feel like you have this purpose now and like a goal that you're driving towards. That's not your kids and not your work and not whatever. It's like just something for you that you love, you know? Like, think about something that you loved as a kid that you would love to be a part of your life and just do it a little bit for like a month. Just do a trial or 2 weeks. Like, you're going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commit to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you do love it and you stay consistent, you do it for like years, you'll find some success in it. Either money or whatever your version of success is. It has to become something, you know, unless you're delusional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you
This
for
is
having
great.
me. This is awesome. I love this.